Okay, good morning. My name's Paul Strongman from Wishtrac, and my colleague Alex Moyles is going to be doing part of the presentation as well. What we're going to do is just talk through what we've been doing over the last 5 years in terms of trying to build and develop an export strategy for our company. What I'm going to do is going to tell you a bit about the company, talk about the UKTI support that we've had to help us, talk about other support we've had from other areas that have also helped us to work out what we need to do. Talk about a couple of mistakes we've made over the last 5 years that you can maybe learn from our mistakes and not make the same ones. And Alex is going to talk about the support she's had from a freight forwarder in her role. Finally, we'll talk a little bit about the future and where we're moving as a company. And then we'll have any questions at the end. So to give you a very brief overview of Wishtrac, I was a deputy head teacher till about 10 years ago, and then started developing software and starting my own company. So the company's been established for 10 years. We initially started making software like Boosterphonics special needs software, some maths software, and some geography software. But as we did that, over time, we started also selling a lot of computer peripherals and hardware, such as keyboards, headphones. And over time, we've developed a range of different products that we resell into the education marketplace. And the company's grown from the first year, the turnover was like £50,000, and the turnover this year is estimated to be around £1 million. Of that business now, we're doing about 15 to 20% of our turnover is in the export market. And that sort of got kick-started really by going on the UKTI's Passport to Export scheme, which gives you an awful lot of support and guidance and advice to help you on your way, really. In terms of the support they've given us, we did that scheme first of all, and it's like 5 days of training courses that we went on, which is explaining lots of things that I've not come across at that time, such as Incoterms, which I'd no idea what they were, and all sorts of different jargon and things like the difference between a distributor and a reseller. So that was all covered in their training courses, which were really helpful. On top of that, there was also some funding that was available as part of it. What we got was some funding to get the website to be optimized for international sales and for international visitors to the website. We got a lot of advice for that. They looked at our website, came out for a day, and gave us a lot of feedback as to what we needed to do. And we also had some money that was used to enhance our software with a voice actress that would make it an internationally available product. And they also helped us sit down and develop a strategy of where we were going to go. So there's an awful lot of support that came from UKTI to help us on our way. About 3 years ago, I sat down with quite a few of the advisors from places like the States, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, to talk about what we needed to do to get into their different marketplaces. Additionally, we've had some support from the local authority. I think it's some European funding that we got, and one of the issues was if we're starting to sell goods abroad and offering credit to firms after we've got an established relationship with them, what sort of processes we need to put in place to manage that from a financial point of view. And we also got advice from someone about writing contracts for resellers or for distributors that don't put you or don't put your business at risk, and make sure that your company is on the right side of any documentation that you've signed with other companies. As I said, we did make a few mistakes along the way. First one was to do with shipping options. In the first instance, we were just going online, looking for couriers that could send goods abroad, and we were using a range of different ones. I think Parcel Flight, Parcel Force, and various others. And one of them had two options for shipping, and it had a standard and a standard express. And the price of it was about £3 different. We thought, we'll go with the standard, it's a little bit cheaper, when we were booking it in once. and then realised that Standard Express said 3 days delivery, and Standard said up to 6 weeks. And our customer wasn't very happy when 6 weeks later they finally received their goods. So that was just a little mistake that we've learned from along the way, but it happened a few years ago. The second was something called Incoterms, which basically are a way of defining how goods are shipped abroad, whose responsibility it is, who's the legal owner of them at any time. If there's a damage, is it after you've passed the rights to the goods on to the customer, or is it still your problem if it gets damaged? Who pays the duty when it's imported into other countries? And basically what we tried to do all the time was send goods as what was called at the time DDU, or delivered duty unpaid, which meant that if someone bought it into India, as it was in this particular instance, they knew that they were responsible for any import duties. But having dealt with different people about 5 or 6 times, we made a bit of a mistake and we forgot to tell them it was DDU. And when the goods got there and they got a surcharge for duty, they refused the goods. And it took 12 months for the courier to get the goods back to us. I don't know what happened to it in the meantime. And that's something we're not going to repeat, and we're going to make sure in future that we have the right Incoterms on it to define the trade. We actually discovered a couple of weeks ago, that we had all these Incoterms from when I did the course, the Passport to Export course in 2010. But apparently they change every 10 years. And the code is now DAP, or delivered at place, which still means the same thing as DDU, but it's been sure that you've got the right terminology and you're as up to date as possible with it, so that you don't have any mistake come across. One of the things we do now is we also give customers an option, because of the freight forwarder we're using now, to send goods and tell them how much the duty will be, and that we'll pay it, and we get them to pay us, and then we pay the duty, which means when the goods get to them, it goes straight through customs to them. And so that's something we've done that makes life easier all round, really, because they know in advance what the cost's going to be. Another problem we had a few years ago was our business insurance. And the broker we used one year was basically saying that the cost of our insurance would double if we exported to North America. And so we thought at that time, well, North America, in that case, we won't send anything there. We'll just take them off and not send anything there. And so when we went to another broker the following year, it was like £76 more to cover North America as well. So at that point, it was like, right, we'll start shipping to America. So it's probably just a case of looking at when you're getting business insurance, to be looking at what the costs are to trade with different areas. I think it's mainly because America's very litigious and want to sue people if anything goes wrong. The final issue we had was with a company that we'd had a long-standing trade agreement with. They've been buying things off us to go to the Netherlands for about 5 years. And they decided they wanted some bespoke keyboards. And they sent us the design of them, and we got in touch with the manufacturer and got them made to a bespoke model. What we'd been doing with this company, because we'd been working with them so long, was giving them credit. And this was quite a big order. It was about £5,000 for a few hundred keyboards, custom made. And when they passed them on to their end user who'd ordered them from them, the end user said, oh, I don't like them, I'm not happy with them. And it took us, the company never said they weren't going to pay us, and after about 4 months, they got a workaround and did pay us. But with anything that's bespoke now, we've learned that we're now going to make sure that we get that money up front. And we've put that customer now as a cash only. They've got to pay us up front before they get goods. But they're just a few things that we've encountered over the years. So I'm now going to pass on to Alex, who's going to talk to you about freight forwarding and what our experiences have been with them.
Well, what is a freight forwarder? The role of a freight forwarder is, bear with me, is to help importers and exporters transport the goods. Freight forwarders are often seen as the international travel agents for transport markets. Freight forwarders are often seen as the travel agents of the international trading. If you have a consignment of goods that you need to get from A to B, the forwarder will identify and book the best routes, modes of transport and specific carriers for you dependent on your requirements. Many transport and logistics operators also offer freight forwarding services. Using a freight forwarder can cut your costs. Because they arrange transport of huge numbers of consignments, they consolidate loads going to a single destination to keep the charges down for international traders. Freight forwarders typically offer a wide range of secondary trade-related services as well as their core transport ones. These include customs clearance. Forwarders can complete customs paperwork on your behalf and pay any taxes or duties that are owed. The documentation issues could be the bills of lading, any documents required by banks before payment is released. Insurance, many forwarders will be able to supply insurance services, inventory management, logistics and supply chain management of value-added activities. Bear in mind that you'll also be able to use your freight forwarder for a value source of information and advice about the international trading process. This can be particularly useful for businesses that are new to international trade. For example, you can ask your forwarder as part of your contract to ensure your goods are properly packaged and labelled for export and, most important, compliant for the shipment to the relative country, which I'll tell you a little bit more about that further into the presentation. How the freight forwarding services actually helped us as a business. We're based in Morton Wirral. Wishtrac supplies industry-leading educational software and hardware to many overseas buyers. Our company's global customer base presents regular challenges in shipping its products overseas. Here's how freight forwarding helps us to achieve our objectives and save time and money into the bargain. We ship and receive goods from all over the world, from a small number of consignments to more larger consignments. What we do, we've actually chose SDV UK, a subsidiary of Ballarat, who is a highly independent industrial group that works among the world's top 10 in transport and logistics. SDV's core business has always been intercontinental air and freight by monitoring and responding to its customs changing needs. SDV has broadened the scope of its expertise and is now a global leader in supply chain management. They also offer a full range of services and industry expertise, the solutions that match the complete logistic needs of importers and exporters, upstream and downstream of production, organising transport. They can deal with any customs and regulatory compliance, logistics, industrial projects and supply chain services. When I joined the company, they were already using lots of shipping companies. What we've done that pretty much on an ad hoc basis via a number of suppliers. I could see the potential benefit, particularly when I had to first organise some of the shipments myself, what a time-consuming nightmare it can be. However, I found that using a variety of suppliers was not ideal. So after a while, I reviewed and rationalised the supplier database, settling on one main provider, which was SDV UK. The main selection criteria was the market knowledge in the countries we needed to ship to, a proven track record, competitive pricing and outstanding levels of customer services. I also checked for the membership of British International Freight Association. Freight forwarding has many benefits, particularly the time saved and smooth passage of our goods through customs. Not only does freight forwarder help a thorough knowledge of customs procedures in the countries we ship to and from, they also have excellent personal contacts on the ground and they know the legitimate shortcuts to speed up the process. Luckily, we have our sales representative from SDV visit us regularly. So when we're planning loads and able to discuss destinations with her in order to establish which countries are relatively easy to ship to and which aren't. This helps us to manage our time better and we reserve the freight forwarding service for high value shipments, goods that we may create customs issues or when shipping to countries with a reputation for being very difficult. For example, we recently exported some goods to Uganda and we actually had to go through a lot of different risk procedures, or it had to be covered for a lot of different things. For example, we have the risk of Ebola, we have piracy, theft, and we had to just make sure that the goods themselves were insured. We also noticed that when we were sending them, the things we were actually sending were cameras. Now, they actually had lithium-ion batteries in, which were hazardous. So that was a whole different route we had to go down, to the point where we then had to get a dangerous goods note, which then had to have a certain number which responded to the actual lithium battery. And then through that, without the help of SDV, we couldn't physically have done it ourselves, because we actually have to have the goods, dangerously goods, packaged. Now, none of us at our office at the moment are trained in that, but we are looking to do that. So SDV managed to sort that for us and get that done, which was really helpful of them. So when we actually use freight forwarders and when we don't, is usually for small orders, which are about 5 kilos or less than £50. We will use a standard courier company. For any other orders, any that are bigger or heavier, then we will use SDV. We use this because we can actually control the cost, because freight forwarding is relatively hassle-free. It's tempting to use it for everything. However, it would be very expensive and isn't always necessary. As I said, for example, very small packages to Europe, we will use the standard courier, such as parcel flight. We allocate costs for freight forwarding services in our annual budget and analyse the previous year's spending. We also conduct occasional price comparisons, getting quotes from other companies or from overseas distributors. We also conduct an annual review with SDV to discuss the previous year and any new markets and costings. When trading internationally, it's very important to remember that cost isn't the only factor. It is something that's detained in customs because the shipper doesn't have the know-how how to get it out, or it's inclined to help because you don't know them from Adam. You might lose an order completely. In general, we'd rather pay for the peace of mind of knowing that it will actually get to where it's supposed to be. What we'd actually do differently would be rationalise suppliers sooner. We wish we rationalised the supplier base sooner, having one point of contact for customs and shipping needs went streamlined the process considerably and allowed us to develop a beneficial working relationship with our provider. I'll pass you back to Paul.
Okay, thanks, Alex. What I'm going to do is just talk about where our company's going to go in the future. The first one is our special needs educational software program, Booster Phonics, which is a synthetic phonics-based program. We've got that now into companies such as New Zealand, Canada and Australia. I think the American market, with the spellings that they have of things like colour, for example, is an issue for us, which we got that advice when we went to see UKTI a few years ago, and we're talking about different spelling rules in different parts of the world. The second one is that we've become the UK and Ireland distributor for the Hovercam Solo 8 and Ultra 8 visualisers. And with that in mind, we're now going to be going and hitting the Republic of Ireland market, which is, again, an exporting market, to promote this 8 megapixel visualiser overseas there. We've, with the help of UKTI, had our website, they've sort of improved the SEO on it, or search engine optimization on the website. And we also use Google AdWords, which are all leading to increases in sales through the website. And the last one that we've got is the Raspberry Pi. We've developed a lot of teaching resources for Key Stages 2 and 3, and we're now starting to get them exported sort of worldwide. We've been looking for resellers and distributors while we've been at the show to try and promote that, rather than just in the UK, to go on a global basis. And we're hoping that with the emphasis on coding, that's going to be something that's going to develop into the future as well.